Imagine a world where cars had X-ray vision, which allowed them to see obstacles and pedestrians through buildings and other parked cars. It's a revolutionary new technology, and it's being developed by researchers in Australia. It allows autonomous vehicles to share data with others in order to track pedestrians hidden behind buildings, cyclists obscured by trucks and buses, etc. It's the sort of thing that could help prevent a collision with a pedestrian about to walk in front of a car. The project is being commercialized and could be a game changer that substantially improves the efficiency and safety of road transportation for both human-operated and autonomous vehicles. And joining me now from London for more on this story is Xray's correspondent Judita Dasilva. Great to see you, Judita. Tell us about this technology that allows cars to see through corners rather than round corners.
So what it's called is cooperative or collective perception technology. And the idea behind it is that there are going to be this on the roadside, particularly at intersections, busy intersections with roads, there are going to be this information sharing units or ITS stations. And what they do is scan everything in front of them using a collection of cameras as well as LiDAR. So LiDAR uses light emitting, and such as the same way that sonar uses sound underwater and radar uses radio waves, LiDAR uses light from a laser. And when they scan everything, they share it down every single street around them. And therefore the sensors on smart cars can pick up that information. So kind of like X-rays using light, they can understand and they can see what is happening through a building. So what would normally be their blind spots and would block their perception, they now have a spatial awareness of everything that is happening out of sight due to this collective perception and sharing of information with the ITS units. So to put it in more practical terms, you interview a lot of political figures. Let's say you're now doing an interview with President Buhari. In the studio, you would have the security guard with an earpiece looking at everything that's in front of him. Outside, there'd be another security guard looking at everything outside the studio. There would be another security guard outside the building seeing who's coming in and out. There'd be another security guard for his emergency exit if he can't use the main exit. All they do is look at everything that's in front of them that they can see, share that information with each other so they can make safe judgment so that President Buhari can move safely within any environment. That in itself is collective perception. You share everything you see with everyone, giving them a greater spatial awareness of what's around them so they can move through it safely.
Well, it sounds really interesting. I mean, so let's say you're approaching an intersection, you'll be able to see exactly what is at that intersection, or you can see a car coming at speed, and for instance, that it's not going to stop at a red light and that sort of thing.
Yes, absolutely. So yeah, as let's say you're approaching and there's a van coming at speed, or particularly in low light situations or with weather, whether it's an icy road and people's stoppage distance is greater, which it creates even more danger. There's a car coming that his brakes aren't working, or he hasn't applied the brakes soon enough. When these ITS stations scan the streets and see what's happening and share that to the sensors in smart cars, the AI within an autonomous vehicle can then judge that we're going to be the ones that need to brake because there's a hazard approaching at speed. That's how you create a safe, even more safety on the roads, because they can see more. And as they say, information gives power, and giving a machine the information to do things more safely means that it will.
Well, I mean, it sounds absolutely fascinating, but what is interesting and potentially revolutionary about this, in addition to the things that you've talked about, is that not only can your car see, but it can, in principle, share with other drivers. I mean, that suggests that you could soon sort of see a network of traffic that can potentially see more than just what the eye can see.
Absolutely. And that's what you've just described is what they call collective perception. So it's what I see as well as what everyone else sees being shared collectively. And the great thing about this is that it's all being done in real time. So as ever-changing situations and scenarios in traffic happen, the constant scanning from these information sharing units on the roadside, sharing information to each other and sharing it to all the vehicles, gives them this almost boundless sense of perception for what they can see, what they could potentially see. And therefore the machines can make educated decisions based on what are happening. Because remember, when you take your driving theory test or you start driving, the first thing your instructor says to you is that don't just look at what's in front of you, look ahead for what might be safe now and could potentially become a hazard. That's how you become a safer driver. This makes that seeing ahead even broader and even more detailed, because you're seeing actual things as they happen at a distance within your peripheral vision and beyond.
Absolutely extraordinary. So is this, in your assessment, Judita, a great idea? Because, I mean, it could substantially improve efficiency and safety on the roads.
It is a good idea up to a point. It's like what we've discussed in the past about AI. It's great doing this for autonomous vehicles, but they're saying eventually it's for also human operated vehicles. The key about this is that the problems they've had why all like autonomous vehicles are not the normal thing is because they have a deficiency. They can't react the way a human reacts. So let's say a man's coming to a zebra crossing. A human being knows that if he gets to the zebra crossing and drops his pen and bends over, he's not going to cross the road. But an autonomous vehicle is just going to see there's a pedestrian and stop. They are not as responsive as humans, and until they can be, it can't be rolled out. With this kind of information, it's so much to process, as well as you being a driver in a situation in traffic with other drivers. Having too much information can be overwhelming and create a whole new plane of struggles, and therefore be counterproductive. So there has to be a balance. You inform drivers, but don't overwhelm them so that they can still function. Because once you bring the human element into things, you have to cater for adrenaline, for emotion, for lapses of judgment. And that human error makes it very difficult to clash with something that is so clinical like this technology.
I agree with you, but I also I'm rather inclined to be excited about these kinds of technological developments, because I know that there are a lot of cars today, you know, that are already in use that make all these pinging noises when another car comes close. And it really is, I mean, it wakes you up. For example, if you're reversing and the car behind you is quite close, you hear a sudden pinging noise, a red light flashes, and you know that, you know, it's time to stop, sort of thing, without anybody standing out and directing the car. But I mean, I understand that the developers are now commercializing this technology. I mean, when can we, and of course, as you said, beyond autonomous cars, they can also be widely adopted for use in regular cars. When can we actually expect them to come into full use?
They haven't put a precise timeline on it, but as you said, this was a collaboration between iMove, which is a government-funded research company, Coda Wireless, which does transport software, and the University of Sydney, and they've been doing this for the past 3 years. If you look at a company like Tesla, which I believe will probably be the first one to chomp at the bits to get this kind of technology rolled out, with the Tesla Model 3, they already have this almost sci-fi kind of screen display inside the car that scans all the cars around you, that not only tells you what's coming around you, the shape of the car, the size of the car. And so that also operates in their both manually driven and autonomous vehicles. So when they're going to be rolling this out, I can imagine that they're going to jump on board with the kinds of companies like Tesla that will proliferate the speed at which it will become widely used. But as of now, they haven't given a precise timeline, because for the reason I gave, until you can get autonomous vehicles to operate with the kind of human efficiency that human beings have, people are less inclined to roll it out widely. And it's still a very niche thing.
Well, I have to say, in spite of the fact that there's still a ways to go, I mean, it sounds absolutely fascinating and revolutionary. And thank you, as always, Judita, for bringing us such an interesting story. Judita Dasilva, Arise correspondent there, talking to me from London. That's it for this edition of the Arise interview. Join us again tomorrow. From me and the entire team here in Abuja and around the world, bye-bye, and thank you for watching.